Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of the 4400. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I think it's actually a really interesting thing how in this episode, LaDonna and Jarrell's stories kind of almost parallel each other to a certain extent, because it is a thing of like, right, they are trying to help others while also kind of serving themselves. It can come off a little selfish, but there's also like it's a complicated thing for both of them because basically the government, in particular the mayor, wants to spin this thing and make it look more, like it isn't kind of the imprisonment that it is. They want to make it seem like, the 4400 are being treated well because they still have no idea who it is that leaked the information. Now with stuff that comes up later on, I'm assuming it's Manny because Manny's related to coding and stuff like he's looking into stuff related to coding, so that's why I'm like, or at least having access to something that is coding-wise that hasn't been used since, like, the 70s or something. So that's why I'm, like, I'm assuming, because Jarrell's focusing on, like, right, this signature, like, the clock. He draws a circle, I put a 1, and I complete it. But, like, he never, by the time we get to the end of the episode, there was never a 3. But part of me wonders, is there more to that? It's because he's not as driven to look for his brother anymore, so, because I don't think a 3 appeared. It was just, like, still just a 2, so maybe it's just because Jarrell by then had kind of stopped and moved on. Finally, that's why that happened. Like, there's something there, like his longing for his brother, like something or someone was tapping into that, and Manny was kind of communicating through that. Maybe not. I don't know. Not less that was done by like Manny, not by Hayden to try and get Jarrell, like to make him feel better. I don't know. Regardless, tangents and all that. Well, not really a tangent, but essentially, once again, they needed a spokesperson, and Shanice was talking to Keisha, quoting the law, so it's like, ooh, definitely can't get her on camera. Hayden, not public speaker. I love Claudette being like, does it pay? And Jarrell's like, no. She's like, so you want me, a black woman, who's in prison against her will, to do a job for free? Ha ha ha. Fun. I'm like, I love how snarky she is, dude. I love it. But the one person who does want the job is LaDonna. I mean, for her, it's like, this is my lane. Like, I'm a social media person. She was actually part of a reality show. She was actually connected to the real ex-wives in Miami, and then she was getting her own reality spinoff. So for her, this was an opportunity to kind of like, she was kind of going a little stir crazy not having her phone. But I think this was an interesting episode for LaDonna because like, she's been showing herself to be like, I'm just some reality star, I'm an airhead. It's like, no, like she's actually really smart. She wanted something outside of this, but her mom being a reality star and also being kind of a stage mom is like, no. You're going to do this. Stop focusing on your smarts, focus on your looks, like this and that. Like her, anytime she wanted to, anything she wanted to do, her mom would be against. Like, she was like, you guys might want to move those courts. She's like, I don't want anything to go wrong legally. Like, I don't want anyone to get hurt. Like, this is my first show and everything. And then it's like, her mom's like, don't worry about it. Just stay away from the sun. You don't want to get any darker. It's like, Jesus. Which I think that could be a conversation in itself, too, because it's like, well, also because it's like, I never really knew that growing up being a conversation about like, right, like being light skinned versus being darker skinned. Like I never knew that was a part of like it's the conversation of colorism. I never knew that was even a part of the equation. I mean, it makes sense when you think about it in retrospect. It's like, like it just, I think it was kind of a little bit of a comment because it's like, right, you're going to look a lot more appealing on camera if you're of a slightly fairer, like lighter complexion. It's kind of what her mom was kind of saying, like, I think. But like I said, that's just an interesting thing that I was ignorant about, I don't know if that ever really came up in history studies either. Just like, I've never really heard anyone talk about that until more recently, like that conversation. But no matter what she did, like, everything became like her mom made it about her, especially because it's like, I mean, herself, because her mom was like, like, you wouldn't have this without me. You alone aren't enough. Me and Cha-Cha, your godmother, us tearing up the drama, that's what's going to bring it. Like, they became more the stars of the show than she did. She got overshadowed. This is supposed to be my time to shine. Maybe that's also why she kind of has the persona she has, because she wants to be the center of attention, because she wants to feel kind of like seen. Because maybe when it comes to her own mother, when it comes to everything around her, she never felt seen. So that's why she kind of leaned into the reality TV show persona, you know? I think that's kind of an interesting thing, and that's why she volunteered to be the spokesperson. But she was like, right, I'm getting something out of it too. I want my phone back. And it's like, right, Keisha agreed to give her like 2 weeks, 2 times a week, she can get access to her phone. So there's that. We never really got 100% clarity on what LaDonna's actual power is. I don't know if it's kind of like Dorothy from Doom Patrol, where it's like she just has to make a wish. That's what I'm wondering, like. Because it seems like if she wants something, like, I guess it's like her powers are based around her desires or want. Because, like, she could make a flame on a candle pop up. So it's like, I think she can kind of, like, manifesting stuff is her power, I guess. Because she made her phone pop up. There was some jewelry that she wanted, like, a better accessory, and it just pops up. So, like, I don't think she creates stuff. I think it's just, like, if she focuses enough, she can draw. Because she did it for a little bit with her phone, and she was like, what? Not less it's not real, it's actually illusions. Not less that's her actual power. It could be like, if she can manifest illusions, so maybe, because she felt the necklace didn't seem real, but maybe that's the thing of like, her illusions can be real. Maybe that's what that's supposed to be. I don't know. Because I've never seen the original show, so she might have parallel ability. Like, some of these abilities might be parallel to abilities from the original show. Some might be new, some might be completely, I don't know. But that's why I was trying to understand it. So it's either she can just make stuff happen or she creates illusions. So we'll have to wait and see. Which I think would be very befitting, considering like the whole reality star persona, things being fake, like her being fake, because she's not even really being herself, because, she had to be someone that she wasn't, because she couldn't be herself. That maybe like her having an illusion ability would actually be very befitting. It's kind of interesting. Like, it reminds me actually of Misfits. If you've ever seen the show Misfits, everyone's OG abilities are very representative of them. Like Simon never felt seen. He always felt invisible. Hence, he had invisibility. Like, that's always like the prime example I will always go to with that. I mean, hell, even like Rudy, for example, like having 2 split personalities. I think that's representative of him having kind of a dissociative personality disorder, probably like led to that. But still, like, it's just, I think it's kind of representative of that. Like, everyone's abilities are a little, maybe some abilities might be representative of like your personality to a certain extent. Like, you don't get some random ability for no reason. It's tailor made for you, essentially, because Shanice ends up learning this episode that she has an ability where she can see people's memories, and I think it's something like, without even like, it's a budding ability, so she doesn't have control of it, because when she hugs Mariah early on, she sees her calling Bridge her mom, and it's like, oh, that took her back for a second, and it's like, oh, Dad told me about the letter. She's like, no, there is no letter. It's like, oh, you did write her that? Well, I did. So you just lied to me. It's like, no, it's just because she got scared. Like, she doesn't want the truth to come out because she's scared. She was scared, like, I don't want my daughter to hate me. I don't want her to believe that, like Logan believed that I ran out on you guys 16 years ago. I don't want you to believe, I don't want you to think that. And she's also scared because, like, right, there's some other woman you're already calling mom. So, like, what room will you have for me, your actual mom, in your life? Especially if you think I abandoned you. So things didn't go the way she wanted them to. But tying this all together, like going back to the point I was also making earlier with LaDonna, about her, like, being the representative on camera that they wanted and needed. You had Jarrell, like, not speaking the lines they wanted him to. They wanted him to make it seem like, yeah, they needed a social worker to make it legitimate of like, hey, everything's all great, everything's awesome. But then he speaks out of term and they're like, hey, no, let's cut that. We're not listening to you. It's great that he cares about us, yada, yada, yada. But obviously that's what went public, and obviously most of the public is eating it up about just like LaDonna's, what LaDonna was saying, because they cut around what Jarrell had said. I mean, to be fair, he made it clear from the beginning he didn't want to do that. Complicated thing is his ex shows up because she's right. Like, she's like, oh, I didn't know you were, it's like, if I knew you were working here, I should have probably given you heads up. But it seems like his relationship went sideways because of the Manny thing, because he grasped at anything, even made up evidence just to be like, no, Manny's out there. He became obsessed about it, and nothing and everything else fell to the wayside. And obviously Jessica's giving him an ultimatum, being like, right, you either play ball or you get out. But for him, it's like, this is the most important lead he has to finding Manny. He hasn't had any other stronger leads than this. These are people who have disappeared from all over time, which they're still not 100% sure about that, which we, as the audience, and they are. But, to the government, it's still like, no, there's something else going on potentially. But for them, it's like, they are the only lead that he has. So he doesn't want to screw up this opportunity, but it kind of blows up in his face. And Keisha ends up talking to him about it later on. It's like, what you did was kind of selfish. I get why you did what you did. Because he's like, how did you handle, what did you do to kind of keep your mind off of, the loss of your sister? She's like, my job. And it's like, obviously you don't care. He's like, no, I do care about it. But it's like, right, I get what you're caring about, Manny. But, these people already went missing once. Don't let them go missing again. Be there for them, support them in whatever way you can. And I think that was such an interesting thing because the roles had been reversed. He'd always been the bleeding heart in the situation. Keisha ended up being the one being like, no, you kind of I know you care about Manny, but don't use these people. What you did was this, you used them for your own selfish needs of you made it more about your personal situation, Manny, rather than these 4,400 people and their families. You made it even more about you. So, and I think that flipped a switch inside of Jarrell, especially because a switch was flipped inside of LaDonna as well when Jessica wouldn't give her phone back. It was something as simple as let her have access. Could have monitored access, but Jessica wasn't down for it. And even Keisha was like, yeah, you kind of didn't have to do that. Because Jarrell does end up getting to keep his job because they don't want it to seem like it's reprisal against him speaking the truth. So it would be worse press in that regard. But the thing is, Keisha's more on Jarrell's side. It's like, you've known him for what? You've only known him a week. You've known me for 6 months, but you don't have my back on this. We're supposed to be partners. She's like, yeah, but he's my partner. And it's it ain't like he was talking out of yeah, he shouldn't have done what he did, but he also was speaking truth too about the way we've been handling this thing. The whole LaDonna thing. All you had to do was give her monitored supervision to her phone. That's all she wanted. I mean, that's what all of them want. They just want to be able to contact family. That's why Shanice did what she did. Took the opportunity. And so now they're kind of on the outs to a certain extent because Jessica's do you not know how hard this is, the pressure I'm under, because all this is kind of under her watch. I mean, that was also the thing too, for Carla as well. It's her job, all that blowback was going to fall on the mayor, and it was going to fall on her because she was kind of the liaison of this operation, whereas Jessica's kind of the lead of this operation. So it's this would have any bad publicity, any blowback would have fallen on them. They would have lost their jobs and stuff so there's give and take with the situation of yeah, they're in a not so great situation, but neither one is being as Carla nor Jessica are being as supportive as they could be to Jarrell and as Keisha, their perspectives on things, not being a supporter to their perspectives. We did get insight into Manny. I love that it's oh, Manny, how old are you going to be? And he was 91. I was okay, so well, now I'm sitting here thinking about it and actually doing the math in my head. He had to be born exactly 1930, didn't he? Regardless, tangents and all that aside, he's not the biggest fan of birthdays because he's nothing to really celebrate when you're locked up. Because I did like what LaDonna was doing, feel it, everyone's role of, from her perspective, or a reality TV show perspective. It's right, Mildred and Hayden are the will they, won't they, and Mildred's will they, won't they, what? And it's don't worry about it, but it's yeah. But Hayden can see the future. That's why he didn't go to Belle Island, and now he has obviously a little insight into others. So that's why I'm I guess that's why he knows Manny's okay, because he ends up seeing Jarrell and Manny eventually reuniting. So I guess that's why he knows that Manny's going to be okay. I guess that kind of gives you a little insight into that. But circling back to the Shanice situation really quickly. Obviously, Mariah comes back later on with Logan because she had snuck off to talk with her, and it's like, right, so she, what about the letter, and she needed to read it for herself because it's like, right, it's like, yeah, I know this person's my mom, but like Bridget's always been my mom, so I don't know who this person is, so she wanted some insight. So they do show up later, and she reads the letter, which Shanice says, like, I was scared, I didn't know what to do, and I never wanted you or Logan to have to live with this letter for the past 16 years like you had to. It's like, I just wanted, I can't explain, I can't make up for all the time I was going, but at the very least, we can start here, if you'll allow me. And the moment Mariah hugs her, she touches Mariah, and it's like, oh, no visions of like a memory. So it seems like, once again, it's like, I think Shanice got it a little bit more under control, because I think like her being so excited, like her ability just kind of, like, I'm sure their abilities are tied to their emotions too, There's also Noah and Andre. Noah opened up to Andre about like, right, I need this medication, Obviously, Andre's like, right, my worldview has been opened up, but also like, because he went to Jarrell to make sure that Noah got the medication he needs, but then also Noah gets dragged away later on because, like, right, seeing Noah's face the way it is going to bring up a lot of questions on camera, so that's why they took Noah away. So you also had Claudette, like, not being too receptive of the Reverend, who was just kind of like, oh, I'm trying to throw a party for Manny. Do you have any ideas? She's like, oh, why? Because I'm a grown woman in my time, and you think I know all there is to know about children. She's like, I didn't mean to offend. And LaDonna's like, yeah, but you did it so well. But later on, it's like, right, Claudette's position on that, it's because she was married to a reverend, but anytime he did anything, he did it for himself. That's why she has, once again, she's made it pretty clear on where she stands on, because when she sees the Rev, she sees her husband, which she's like, yeah, like, that's not me. He's like, but it does sound like my father. So he's trying to, still doesn't mean you won't slide into that position of best intentions and all that, can always go sideways. It can get shifted. So he could start off with the best of intentions, but that could end up turning into a position of, I've got a lot of power. So, I mean, it's interesting because, like, we don't know what his power is, but he is able to sway and motivate a lot of people. I mean, it ain't like we've seen any evil presented from it. It's just, so I think that's fascinating. But Claudette has kind of shifted her perspective on him just a little bit. Just considering all that he was able to do for Manny. I mean, obviously they threw in the party. It's like, yeah, it's kind of low grade. They even had to put like a candle in the lobster. But it's like, yeah, it was something. And obviously for Hayden, it's like, yeah, I think I like birthdays now. Because like him and Maddie kissing, she's like, you saw that coming, didn't you? He was kind of like, yeah. And it's like playing. She made him a chess set and everything. It's like, those two are super adorable. We also, I hadn't talked about it, but LaDonna remembered exactly what the circumstances were of when she disappeared. She's like, if I hadn't disappeared when I did, I would have fallen to my death. And I'm like, do you think this is almost like a preventative measure where, like, their lives wouldn't have gone the way they were supposed? Like, the reason why they were brought here present day. Now, was LaDonna just lucky, or were they brought here specific times because it's like almost like a Final Destination thing of like trying to prevent your death because we know it. Like, it's like like Final Destination, the key person in those movies always has a vision of the future. So that's what I'm wondering, is that what happened here? Like, someone knew, like, their lives weren't, like, even though it seemed like, oh, everything's fine, like, maybe the next event that before they got sucked away would have led to their, like, deaths, like, moments before, or sometime later. So you showing up now is actually, it's part of some grander plan. Like, that's what I'm wondering. It might just be that LaDonna just happened to be the lucky one in that regard. Like, she tripped and fell off, and that for her, like, that's what sucks the most. Is like, I fell to my death and no one even noticed. No one cared, because it's like, even people being like, oh, this is your show. It's like, no, like, they're just doing what's best for the show. Like, producers like, oh, like, zoom in the camera, focus on Loretta, her mom, and Cha-Cha, like, her godmother fighting. Like, that's all that was. You know, it's like, right, no one was in her corner. No one had her back. No one was there for her. Everyone just kind of, you know, she was just kind of means to an end, and no one really saw her. No one really listened to her. Soraya, though, is a huge fan. It's like, wait, you know who I am? She's like, of course I did. And I love LaDonna's like, wow, you might be my first official stand. And Soraya's like, honored, because it's like, because she's like, yeah, if I figured as much, like some people were saying like, you disappeared from the show because you went into rehab, because that's where people thought she was. I'm sure that was kind of a story her mom was probably spewing just to kind of keep things rolling without but it's like, yeah, her Soraya has access to the unaired LaDonna's Life pilot, but she was also talking about like, yeah, I figured that you most likely like ran off and like changed your name and actually did something in engineering science, because you talked about that in this very specific episode of the Real Ex-Wives of Miami. And she's like, whoa, you are a stan and everything. I was like, yeah, Soraya, they made it clear. She was like, oh yeah, like she loves reality TV, you know, so I thought that was kind of interesting. I also love that she's like, oh yeah, maybe it'll give me an opportunity to talk to Keisha. And Jarrell's almost like, you know she's in a relationship. You know she has a girlfriend, but things are a little not so good right now. So I'm sure Soraya's going to be like, hey, oh man, that sucks. Huh? You know, it's like, because she's like, I guess she's vibing with Keisha. So I'm like, I'm sure that's potentially where that's going to go. But it's like, yeah, she's still looking for opportunities. Like, you know she's in a committed relationship. Okay, Soraya, do your thing. I wonder what we get. I hope we do get a lot of insight into Soraya, because I feel like there's a lot there that we haven't. Obviously, like, she only got introduced last episode. We're only on episode 3, but I'm like, I feel like there's a lot like scratching at the surface when it comes to Soraya. I'm curious to find out what her circumstances are. But at the end of it all, though, you have LaDonna sending all the footage to Mariah, and it's like, right, put this out there. Like, you know, I know you're a badass like your mom, so I need you to, like, please do this, not just, you know, for her, but also for all of us, the truth. And like Shanice, you know, there's recordings when Shanice was talking to Keisha about the law, and then like seeing the way that, you know, there's video of like the way they're being treated, especially Noah, and Mariah posts that and publishes it. So this is definitely not going to be the PR situation that everyone was hoping for, especially because it's gonna make LaDonna's thing look extra bad, because it's like, oh, not only were you lying to us, you not only were you hiding the truth, you were extra hiding the truth because you put on this little performance that people were eating up, and now it's going to backlash even harder the moment the truth is out there. Like, yeah, so that's definitely going to be interesting to see where all that goes. I skipped over it, but like a little bit. But LaDonna's going to be helping Andre, you know, for one, figure out the coding that Manny has, but also getting him up to date about a lot of the medical science and stuff like that. Because he had brought up the fact that, because like LaDonna was like, right, there's someone that disappeared potentially in a green light that's tangentially connected to us. So it's like, it's too much of a coincidence that his brother would potentially disappear, and he just happens, it's like, and we disappear and we pop up. It's like, there has to be some connection there. So LaDonna's going to be helping figure it out, because Andre sees her for who she really is, that you are a lot smarter than people give you credit for. For her, it's like, no one ever really gives me credit for being as smart as I am. Like, I'm just like, oh, the reality star, like, you know, that's all anyone knows her for and everything. Because, like, that dude in particular who was like, hey, I thought you went to rehab. You look great. Like, you haven't aged a day. And she's like, oh, you know, it's my skincare routine or whatever. So it's like, yeah, like, people are chomping up the bit. But it was like, you know, Soraya in particular was like, no, I figured that you changed your name and did all this, that you used that smarts, your 4.6 GPA. Like, I figured you were, like, using that and getting away from the spotlight and stuff, you know? Which is so interesting, too, because, like, there are plenty of actors that actually do that, too, which is fascinating, too. Like, who are actually really, really smart, that just besides acting that they wanted to, they could probably do something else too. I mean, there are plenty of actors who do quit and just get regular jobs, which is always fascinating as well. Well, because the one that always comes to my mind is like, I'm going to butcher her name because I always do, Mayim Bialik. I know I butchered her name. Mayim Bialik, I believe. I think I'm pronouncing it right that time. Like, she played a neurologist or neuroscientist on Big Bang Theory, but she's actually one in real life too. That's why she was able to kind of get the role. So like a lot of the like medical, like the scientific jargon she speaks is also from like, no, like I know this firsthand. So like that's always one of the examples that will always come to my mind, because I was like, oh, that's fascinating to know that that's you in real life too. That like that's kind of like your lane, along with being an actor. But regardless, tangents and all that aside, it kind of LaDonna's situation kind of remind me of that a little bit. But I'm very interested to see where the next episode ends up taking us going forward with all of this. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.